Nathan, your team of the year.
Yes, much thought has been put into this.
What fresh disgrace do you have for us this year?
This was one of the more difficult teams of the year because there's been no great team. There's been a lot of inconsistency, and also we've watched so much football.
Well, Man City record-breaking run of victories. There's been no great team. They're a great team. We take them for granted now, but they're a great team.
I think they're a very good team. I don't think they're as good as the City team that won the Premier League 2 years ago or 3 years ago, where they probably played the best football we've ever seen in the Premier League. So I don't think they're quite at that level. They went on a brilliant run at just the right time when everyone else was incredibly inconsistent and killed them off. Also, because we've seen so much football, quite often when you're picking the team of the season, you've watched the Big Six week in, week out, and you might commentate in Burnley 3 times a season and watch them 4 or 5 other times for a full 90. Whereas now, I feel like I've seen 38 Burnley games or 36 Burnley games so far this season. So there's nothing about Ashley Westwood and Josh Brownhill and Matt Loughton that I haven't seen. And suddenly I feel like these guys deserve a chance for a team of the season. But unfortunately, the 3 lads haven't made it this time.
When Christopher Moltisanti gets shot in The Sopranos and he wakes up and says, I was in hell. It was St. Paddy's Day every day and I was in an Irish bar. For Nathan, the equivalent is, it's hell. I've had to watch 38 games of Burnley this season.
I think that's a pretty pleasant experience.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it's going to be strange next season going back to a regular TV schedule.
No, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. We're going to appreciate football all the more for the fact that it's a tiny little bit more rationed than it is now, but not that much more rationed.
But you can't just not watch it. You could also just get a life once we're allowed to get a life again and just not watch the multitude of different match days that are on our TVs. That is an avenue.
I've taken the sensible decision during this pandemic to not do that, not have a life, not be out and about like the young people and sit in and watch the football. Anyways, Gerald, just to keep you on side, starting in goal, Emiliano Martinez.
What a signing. What a transformative signing. Basically turned Villa from perennial relegation strugglers into a team who was safe by midway point of the season.
Yeah, last season they conceded 67 goals, looked with 3-4 games left like they were going down, and like a team and squad that deserved to go down, that didn't have enough Premier League quality. They signed really well during the summer, but Martinez was the key. 15 clean sheets already, and just made everybody look rock solid at the back. And now you look at that Villa defence with Cash and Target at full back and Konza and Mings in the centre and think, that is, top half of the table Premier League defence, all of whom teams could come looking at. So I think Martinez deserves to be there. Ederson is the best keeper in the Premier League. This is the difficulty of picking team of the season. Ederson had a very quiet season though because City were just so solid in front of him. I think Illan Meslier at Leeds is going to be brilliant. He's 21. He is a proper modern goalkeeper playing in a team that like to get it out quickly from the back. And obviously Edouard Mendy had a big impact at Chelsea as well. But Martinez for 15 clean sheets at a team last season who couldn't and had all sorts of issues in goal. And you think back to Pepe Reina was playing in goal last season.
I was going to say, basically they had Brad Friedel. The ghost of Brad Friedel is still playing last season.
God, I forgot about that. What is like? I mean, yeah, this is you're after. It's very, very hard to make a case against him. But how close do you come to saying Ederson or Mendy might get in there? Because 15 clean sheets for Villa is worth way more than, what was it, 16, 17 maybe that Ederson had come the end, maybe 18.
Yeah, Ederson wins the Golden Glove Award, but that is, and there'll be places during this where you go, well, he is a better footballer than him. But actually, has this person had the season of their life? Have they transformed what their team is trying to do? Which I think you say, would City win the league without Ederson? Maybe not, but there's no way that Villa would have had the improvement they've had this season without Martinez coming through. And I know you're one of those bitter Arsenal fans who said, well, we didn't want him anyways. Bert Leno's a far, far stronger goalkeeper than Emiliano Martinez. But Bert Leno didn't make the shortlist, though.
Well, as you say, there are better goalkeepers who aren't going to make it, and I'm fine. I think the bitterness is that Leno is also going to be gone, so they're left with nothing. And they could have just backed Emi last year and everything will be fine and they'd be qualifying.
Leno leaving.
There's strong talk of it, yes. So, Martinez is a banker as far as I'm concerned. So that's a good start. Your back four.
1 second. Sorry. Martinez gets super bonus points for wearing short sleeves as a goalkeeper. I'm like that. You get absolutely amazing. Leno also wears it, but whatever.
I think there's going to be controversy in your back four, Nathan.
Okay, my back four is right back, Luke Ayling of Leeds. Left back, Luke Shaw of Manchester United, and Ruben Dias and John Stones at centre back.
Wow.
I could have put 3 or 4 Leeds players in this team. I was trying to find ways to put Leeds players in this team because they've been the best thing about the Premier League for large parts of this season. They've actually been the best thing about every game being on TV because though they're a big club, we may not have got to see all the brilliant Leeds days, even last weekend against Burnley. Sitting down for that second half was as good a 45 minutes of football as you see a team play. The energy, the enthusiasm, the fact they just go all out all of the time and have been able to do it all throughout the season. You could have had Ayling, Dallas, Harrison, Bamford, Rafinha would have all been contenders. Calvin Phillips, they've just been absolutely outstanding. And I think Ayling deserves to be in. He started every game. He's played pretty much every minute. And that lead style demands so much out of every player. His energy levels never dipped. Even watching him at the weekend, he is the one when quite often when they all bomb forward, even in the 85th minute, who's having to desperately chase back if they lose the ball and make that last gasp tackle. I think he's made more tackles than anyone else in the Premier League. And while there's a lot of contenders and there's a lot of young, exciting players, like Reece James, Tariq Lamptey was brilliant until he got injured at Brighton. I think Wan-Bissaka's had an excellent season, been rock solid for Manchester United. Vladimir Soufal at West Ham has excelled in their run. Trent Alexander-Arnold, kind of like Ederson, I think is probably the best right back in the Premier League. But Liverpool's dip and collapse makes it very difficult, I think, to pick any of those Liverpool players.
Well, Trent had a couple of bad months where he was really bad.
He did, and
that one game he gave the ball away 39 times.
Well, yeah, but you can look at that stat, but also there's plenty of stats from last season where he also gave the ball away an awful lot in games, and it didn't matter because the rest of the team were so good. He takes a lot of risks in his play. But yeah, I think he was having to play in a very different way in that spell because Liverpool were on the back foot, whereas he is clearly at his very best when he's on the front foot. And what he's done over the last few weeks where he's basically taken Liverpool by the scruff of the neck, it feels, and says, I'm going to be the one who drives you forward. Taken on at times a sort of João Cancelo position, who probably at Christmas I would have felt, is nailed on for this. The more the season's gone on, I look at Cancelo and go, he's good, he's very good. But maybe the most interesting thing about Cancelo was actually what Pep Guardiola was using him for in that right back / central midfield role. So I'm very happy with having Luke Ayling in this team.
But like that's exactly it though, isn't it? That Cancelo had been used in a way that we hadn't seen too often from the right back's perspective. He was used in a way that got the best out of this Pep Guardiola system. He was used in a way that got Manchester City on that incredible winning run. I would 100% have him in there ahead of Ayling. I would have Kyle Walker in there ahead of Ayling. No question about it. I'd have Wan-Bissaka in there. Like you pointed out 7 or 8 Leeds players who've had excellent seasons, and it's great that they're being included in the team of the season. But is it not a little bit of tokenism? Like they're going to finish 8th in the Premier League this season. The quality has been spread around the team. It's not like there's been one outstanding player that you can pick, with the exception maybe of Bamford's goal scoring this season. That I'm just not sure how you can make a case that Ayling has actually had a better season than Cancelo, Walker, or Wan-Bissaka.
Well, I think like Emi Martinez, like Luke Ayling, like an awful lot of these Leeds players, has come up through the league, spent a lot of time in League One, in the Championship, and there were huge questions about these Leeds players as to how they would step up. And Ayling has proven himself to be as good as any right back in the Premier League this season. The way he contributes to the way Leeds play, he is an absolute key cog in that side. And every time you watch him, he rarely, if ever, makes a mistake. And I just think he's brilliant to watch. I think he contributes at both ends of the pitch. He probably doesn't have many assists, but he is the one who gets the ball into the right places at the right time. And yeah, Cancelo was the most interesting player of the season for a long part of it because of what Pep Guardiola asked him to do. But I think Ayling has made such a massive impact that I would have him ahead of Cancelo.
So he's the most improved player. It's kind of what I'm
if that was an award, he would
like that's what you base it on. Like rather than him being better than all, it's like wow, Luke Ayling's really shocked me with his performance this season, and Leeds have been so good. Like it seems that the jump that they've made is the main reason for this, rather than the fact that he's actually necessarily had a better season as a right back than his competitors.
But if that's the case, your team of the season will literally just be the top 2 in the table.
Not necessarily. Like we'll get into a few later on. Like I think that one of your Manchester City players later on could definitely be replaced with a player who's playing for a team currently in 11th, and we'll get to that later on. Absolutely not. I think that there's a way of distilling this down a little bit differently. Like, Ayling's had a really good season. He's definitely the defender. Well, maybe Dallas, if you call him a defender slash midfielder.
Well, Dallas not a defender. Dallas played in midfield. Just because he's a defender in fantasy football, if you're watching the games on, you'll have noticed he plays in midfield.
Oh!
Says Ned, who picked, Emi Martinez, who is the fantasy football king in his.
Well, and I tried not to let that influence my decisions in this because I had some real bitterness around some of it.
Don't worry, I've got Dallas down here as a midfielder in the question marks that are seriously to be asked around your midfield, which we'll get to in a moment. But I just don't understand personally how Ayling, you can actually say, is the best right back. If you're taking it in isolation, it's almost as if you've looked across and it's almost as if you are playing fantasy football and it's like, oh, I've got 3 Manchester City players or 4 Manchester City players in this team. I can't pick another one at right back. They've been one of the best teams we've seen. That run we've seen was one of the best runs we've seen in the last couple of years in the Premier League. And I think from right back, you had a player in Cancelo who was at the heart of all of that and was so good. But I'm not sure. Like, I'm sure you had Ayling in your fantasy team this year, and like maybe that connection to him is what we're actually seeing here this morning.
I didn't. I like yourself on it, Stuart Dallas.
Right. Well, good for you. It's hard to argue with the other 3 in the back 4, to be fair to you. I would have gone for Stones and Diaz and Luke Shaw.
Stones definitely in this team? Is he really? I mean, look, he looks okay, but there was definitely a bit of a wobble. When there was a bit of a wobble, it was because of him. I mean, obviously, but I think Diaz it's like Phil Babb being in the team of the tournament for the World Cup in '94 because he's playing alongside Paul McGrath.
Yeah, but I think we did a classic game club last year where we watched back at Giant Stadium, and it's sacrilegious to say Phil Babb was outstanding. Gets none of the credit for what happened in Giant Stadium because everyone talks about Paul McGrath, but actually. But
he's outstanding because he's playing alongside one of the best players in the world. That's the thing. There's like this superhero cloak that Diaz has suddenly. Look, Stones has had a good season. I'm not saying he hasn't, but surely there's somebody who's been better, no?
Well, I was changing this back and forth because you say Diaz will win Footballer of the Year. He had that transformative effect on the City defence, and he lived up to all the hype that was there when he was coming in about what he would bring in a leadership sense as well. And he played every game when it mattered. They did a lot of rotation at City, but Diaz was there, so nailed on. It was between Wesley Fofana and John Stones, but I think Stones, going back to Owen's point, when it mattered in that run, he's played the best football of his career. You kind of break City's season into 3 parts. There's that first 13 games where they only win 5 of their first 13, then they win the next 14, and really since then they've the League One and they've been rotating players. But Stones and Diaz at one stage played 14 games together in a row and conceded 2 goals. And while he's had a bit of a wobble, particularly at international level, made the mistake and maybe that sort of stalled his rhythm. I think Stones, when City were at their best, he was a key part of that. So Fofana has been brilliant. In fact, all 3 of those Leicester centre-backs, Sayonshu, Evans, have all had really strong seasons. Harry Maguire has been brilliant at times for Manchester United, maybe made a couple too many mistakes. Ezri Konsa at Villa has come on massively over the last few months. Ben Godfrey at Everton's been a good player all season, but yeah, I'd be happy enough with Stones and Diaz as the back 2.
Okay, you're back 2 on the 23rd of December. Wesley Fofana and Fabinho. That's who you picked in your team of the year Christmas. And I remember that being relatively controversial at the time. But Fabinho's claims for being the best centre-back in English football, not in your team of the season.
No. Well, that was a half season, and a lot happened. Did something
happen? Did something go wrong?
I if you were trying to find places for Liverpool players in a team of the season, I think the only 2 who would have any sort of a claim are probably Fabinho, who even when he's been in midfield has been very solid for Liverpool, and Mo Salah. But yeah, Fabinho, obviously they changed things. He's been between defence and midfield, and obviously it all fell apart. At that stage, there was a bit of controversy, but I think a lot of people thought Fabinho had done quite well. Luke Shaw, left back, nailed on. I think it's fairly straightforward. Best season of his career. Proper threat down the left-hand side. 5 assists. Got the response they wanted from the signing of Alex Telles, who I know United fans were very excited about at the start of the season. If there was a comeback of the year, they used to have a comeback of the year award on the PGA Tour. They had to, I think, stop it when Steve Stricker kept winning it. But Luke Shaw would win the left back of the year. Cresswell has been good at West Ham. Luca Dean at Everton. James Justin, talking about Leicester players, what a loss he was. Could play left back, right back, and was brilliant for 2/3 of the season until he picked up his injury. But I'd say when the team of the season has been picked by the players, Luke Shaw will be one of the easier selections.
All right, midfield, who have we got?
Declan Rice. I'm going for a 4-1-4-1 in honour of my good friend Marcelo Bielsa and that great Leeds United team of the last season. So Declan Rice as my holding midfielder, I think he's already far surpassed expectations. When he turned his back on Ireland, a lot of people felt Rice was maybe solid, one-dimensional holding midfielder, but this season he has gone to another level. He's anything but that. His ability to turn on the ball and turn defence into attack. He has a range of passing. Every game you watch him play in, he just seems to stand out a mile and will be one of the most sought-after players in the Premier League during the summer because so many teams need someone like him. As you know, I love giving Declan Rice awards, so I find it very hard to do anything like this and not include Declan Rice in it, but I think he absolutely deserves that holding role as it would be in this team. Other Calvin Phillips again at Leeds, great. Scott McTominay, I think, maybe underestimated at times at United.
No.
Because the fact they play two holding players. I think anytime I watch United, I'm impressed by McTominay. He's not helped by the fact he's
Player of the Year material. You're putting him in the conversation for the Team of the Year.
I think in that holding role, if as the John Giles is, wouldn't be happy listening to this, but as a player who's sitting back and letting the others do the attacking, you've got Rodri. Højbjerg's had a really good first season at Spurs, but I don't think McTominay of the Manchester United team, he's developed massively in the last year. He was that sort of just sitting player. He's added goals to his game, assists to his game, and I think a lot of the criticism is because they played two of them. Is he able to do that by himself in that United team? It doesn't seem so. Solskjaer certainly doesn't seem so, but I think Scott McTominay's had a really strong season.
So do you think Scott McTominay is closer to this team than Wilfred Ndidi, for example?
No, I would have had Wilfred Ndidi on the shortlist as well, and Tielemans. I had Tielemans in the team and took him out last minute.
Oh.
But listen, I was worried that I was going with
recency.
I said I had him in the team and I took him out last minute.
Tielemans.
Therefore, he's not there right now.
Right.
Tielemans, yes.
We've got him. We've got him in your team.
Yeah,
we've got Declan Rice and Yuri Tielemans in your team. Who have you taken it out for?
That's a great question.
Who is in for Tielemans? Let's come up with a short list. Maybe it's a.
So who's next on my list?
Tielemans.
Yuri Tielemans, nailed on starter in my team of the season. Was outstanding last night. I couldn't decide whether there was too much recency bias when I was putting Tielemans in, and was I putting too much stock in the cup final. He has been brilliant though. Himself and Ndidi, as you say, in the middle of midfield for Leicester, and it's probably been a while coming for Yuri Tielemans because I remember when he left Anderlecht to go to Monaco, it felt at that time he might go to the Premier League, but everyone felt this is a really good decision to go to Monaco and progress. And he went at the worst possible time when they sold everybody and Mbappe left and Bernardo Silva and Mendy all left, and he sort of found himself at a bit of a shit show, and it's taken time to find his feet. But I think this summer for Belgium, he's going to be a key man in midfield for them, and I would happily have him in my team of the season.
Good, because you do. Let's move on. You've got we actually had it as like a 4-2-3-1, but you're saying it's 4-1-4-1.
But it is now again that Tielemans is back in the team. He makes it a 4-2-3-1 again. I think you've changed formation again, Nathan.
Yeah, I have. Well, this has just gone to. This has been disastrous.
Okay, so just to remind everybody, your team at Christmas, in fairness, was Martinez in goals. Reece James was right back. Fofana and Fabinho centre backs. Andy Robertson was at left back. Not even in the conversation at the moment. You had Højbjerg and Henderson, and then you had Fernandes, Salah, Kane, and Son. Who have we got now? Who have we got left?
Well, Bruno Fernandes is in there.
Yeah.
An easy pick. What he did for probably the first 2/3 of the season. He's obviously faded quite a bit, but still has impacts without being able to control the game over the last while. But 18 goals, got to be in there. That's where Stuart Dallas is in the mix, but it's hard to find one of those midfielders that Stuart Dallas is getting in ahead of. I presume then I've gone with Ilkay Gundogan.
You have?
So I've Gundogan, no De Bruyne, or Foden. I've gone with Gundogan because in that spell, that was the best spell of Gundogan's career. He scored 11 goals in 12 games when City were at their very best, and for that sort of 3-month spell, went from being just another City midfielder to being the best player in the league. And with that run of form, that really killed everybody off. De Bruyne was out for a good chunk of those games, and Gundogan became the main man. So I think with that, he has to be in the team. So not putting in De Bruyne was a difficult decision, and not putting in Foden. And I was watching back the match last night, looking at Foden and the goal he scored against Brighton. Should I squeeze this guy in there? I just felt with De Bruyne again that, does De Bruyne spark Manchester City, or do City need to spark De Bruyne? When City are playing well, De Bruyne tends to be playing well. But if they're not, does he drag them out of it? So De Bruyne was there for that first third of the season when City were doing nothing. When, as you say, for first 13 games, nothing happened for them at all. He missed some of the games during that run. Obviously missed probably the performance of the season. The key performance of the season wasn't there the day they beat Liverpool 4-1. Played in the defeat against Manchester United without doing a huge amount. He's clearly a lovely footballer, one of the best in the Premier League, but I don't think he's got to his very best level this season when it really mattered for Manchester City. And I think Gundogan was the one who isn't of the same talent as De Bruyne. But
De Bruyne should really be, if he was fulfilling the level of hype and conversation around him and his potential, he should be in the conversation for the European Footballer of the Year. That's the level that De Bruyne has the potential to achieve. But he's never really been in that conversation for a sustained period of time, for a couple of seasons in a row, for over a 3-season period where you're like, yeah, this is one of the top 3 footballers in Europe. And he's having the impact on the title race and on the Champions League that you would expect from anybody who joins the conversation that is always there around Messi and Ronaldo and whoever else. But he hasn't hit that level.
This is his time. And if he is to hit the level, this next 2 months are the time for Kevin De Bruyne, because he can go and play in a Champions League final and dominate a Champions League final and win it. And then he can go to a European Championship with one of the favourites and be the best player in that. And maybe we look at Kevin De Bruyne in a totally different way, and he's won absolutely everything. But I wouldn't say I find him frustrating to watch, because he's such a beautiful footballer. You enjoy watching him, but I would like him to take more games by the scruff of the neck. And there are more players who stand out. And I'm sure City fans will say they stand out because of what Kevin De Bruyne does and what he lays on a plate for Foden and Gundogan and Mahrez. But
he's been injured a bit, Nathan. That factors into the wider conversation. Obviously, team of the season, it's a fair point, but in the wider conversation around De Bruyne, I think that's a pretty harsh assessment. That's he's not at that level of European Player of the Year. I mean, when it comes to European midfielders, he's possibly the best at the moment. And this season, while it's been a brilliant season for City, hasn't been a great one for De Bruyne, because he did have those fitness issues around their purple patch. And I guess that's where your criticism lies, is that during that purple patch, it was Gundogan who was playing and carrying the team when De Bruyne was actually out for a while.
Yeah, it didn't just carry the team, went on this sensational run of form, which won them the title. And that's nothing Kevin De Bruyne could do about being out injured for some of those key games and missing the match against Liverpool. But that was the winning and losing of the title, that run of form. So, as I said, there's still an opportunity for De Bruyne. Nobody's saying that he's not an absolute quality player, one of the best in the Premier League. But I think Jared's dead right. He needs to elevate himself to another level. But he can do that now by playing in a Champions League final, dominating it, going to a European Championship, being brilliant at it. And suddenly he's won the Premier League, the Champions League, and maybe a European Championship in the summer. And there's no question then, next December when the awards have been handed out, that Kevin De Bruyne is right in the mix for them. But Foden I went for Riyad Mahrez as well. I think he's the most skillful player in the Premier League. His close control is ridiculous. When De Bruyne or one of those City midfielders is pinging those 40-yard crossfield balls, his ability to just take it on his left foot, on his instep, cut inside and smack it into the back of the net. He's had the best season since he arrived at Manchester City, and just a constant threat. So much of what they do, since they changed system as well, and they don't play with a proper number 9, when they don't play with Aguero or Jesus, he rotates everywhere. He's involved in everything. Anytime he gets the ball, he makes something happen, never just holding on to it for the sake of it. And while he doesn't have maybe the stats of some of the other players, I just think Mahrez is such an exceptional talent. I'm happy to have him there, just ahead of Phil Foden.
Well, maybe if you actually watch the games, Nathan, you would know that Phil Foden and Jack Grealish have both had better Premier League seasons than Riyad Mahrez.
Based on what? Purely statistical?
No, I mean, I got that tone from what you were saying there, all right, that you kind of sneer at stats, that if you look at a good stat line, you're like, it doesn't matter. I like my players to have close control and to be able to play a false 9. Is that the sense I'm getting here? Is that what I'm getting here? Like, I mean, it seems that it was Mahrez versus Foden.
I think Jack Grealish has had a great season, but he didn't play for half it. So
well, he made the exact same amount of starts as Riyad Mahrez.
No, but Mahrez is far more.
What's your now? But that's your case against Grealish is he didn't play enough. He played as much as Mahrez
and was more effective in a worse team.
Well, clearly in a worse team, but I think Mahrez
Recency
was at a
bias.
different level. What, that we've forgotten about Grealish?
Yeah, it is. I mean,
because he hasn't played in 3 months, quite possibly.
Well, Petey,
you've got the stats for how many starts they had.
They've both made 22 starts in this year's Premier League. Like, and the way Aston Villa crumbled without Jack Grealish in certain moments, not just in attack, but their whole team. It was almost like taking Calvin Phillips out of Leeds when he was missing for a couple of games. Whereas Jack Grealish is an attacking midfielder. It's incredible the control he has in every game that Villa have. And then, of course, you can sprinkle the stats in there, but I won't do that to you.
But to do it away, I would say that Riyad Mahrez is playing at a far different level in terms of the pressure, the week in, week out, having to deliver, having to win these big games, that Jack Grealish, maybe at Aston Villa, doesn't have to do.
What about Luke Ayling at right back? He's not under the same pressure as Aaron Wan-Bissaka or João Cancelo.
Well, but from what you want, Owen... But
well, I'm responding to you. You're saying that the pressure is now all of a sudden an important thing.
I'll flip it back to you. So you're saying Cancelo should be in, but Mahrez shouldn't be in.
I'm not using the pressure as a... I'm not using the pressure as a way of judging this whatsoever. It's you that's using it.
No, you're just trying to flip it. I'm saying that Riyad Mahrez should be in the team of the season because he was absolutely outstanding. You're saying that Jack Grealish should be in because he played the same amount of games as him. I'm saying Mahrez plays at a far better quality of game, far more important games where he has to deliver.
I mean, because every single time Jack Grealish plays, the whole team rests on his shoulders, and success or failure is staying in the league. And he, last season, when it was required, popped up with the goal that kept him in the Premier League and was the only thing that was Premier League quality about them last season. And then this year, got them to be a team that had top 6 credentials. That's the transformative effect. Whatever about the Martinez impact that he had on Villa, you can see the impact that Jack Grealish had. They went from being a really good team who could effectively win almost any game, with potentially the exception of City, and being in almost every game, to a team who now you think are absolutely relegation candidates again because he's missing, and they've kind of been in that level of form.
We're forgetting one player.
I thought we had many conversations, Jer, where injuries don't impact on teams.
I don't know what you're saying.
I thought you were very sure that Virgil van Dijk's injury shouldn't have had such an impact on Liverpool.
Oh,
it's a good point. I mean, he's got there.
Revenge is a dish best served cold. This is like a conversation 9 months ago. I'm gonna get you.
Nathan, we are forgetting one player. Heung-Min Son. He doesn't make the team.
No. Again, a very tight call. He probably has faded over the last few months. I presume he was in our team at a half season. Was probably one of the first names on it. Who are you leaving out for Heung-Min Son? And I remember at the time, without going too into the stats, that his XG was insane. Basically, he was scoring far too many goals. And this was going to dry up, and it kind of did dry up a little bit. And like at the time, Spurs probably at the half season still had a chance of, competing for the title.
Yeah,
is that the best season of his career? There's no question about it. I just struggled to put him in instead of any of those other players. I'd have Jack Grealish ahead of him.
Thank you. That's that just warms the cockles of our hearts in the studio this morning. You're a striker. There's absolutely no debate about this.
Harry Kane. As an out-and-out striker, it's more difficult now because there aren't that many out-and-out strikers when City aren't really playing one. Liverpool didn't have anybody who stood out. Harry Kane potentially going to win the Golden Boot again. Calvert-Lewin's had a great season. Once again, I remember we used to go to Goodison Park a lot, and you'd look at Calvert-Lewin and think, he's never going to quite have it. He's 10 goal a season max, and now he's done it 2 seasons in a row. He's going to be in the England squad. Bamford, as you mentioned, has surprised everybody and far surpassed what everybody expected from him with the amount of goals he scored. Chris Wood, what he's done over the last few months has been brilliant. Ollie Watkins has had a great season, but Harry Kane is miles ahead of everybody else. And also, what he's added to his game, he's not just about scoring goals. He's dropping deeper. He has incredible amount of assists this season. He was never just a goal scorer, but he's taken that work rate and that team ethic to a whole other level this season. We'd
be going to the Euros thinking we were going to win it if we had Bamford, Grealish and Rice in our team. That's what we'd be like, convincing ourselves that, if this breaks our way, look at that team we have. It's as good as anybody's.
I don't think we'd be thinking we'd win it, but I'd be thinking we'd be very confident because those 3 players suddenly make everybody better.
Yeah.
If you have 3 quality Premier League players, maybe we'll do we wouldn't get an Irish team of the season in the Premier League, but who are we looking at? Seamus Coleman is probably one of the only real contenders, unfortunately. So yeah, if Declan Rice and Jack Grealish were in an Irish jersey now, like, the results would be totally different. Everything would be totally different. But unfortunately not.
Nathan, good stuff. Thanks very much for that. Nathan Murphy with his team of the season that you can poke fun at on Twitter, and you can debate with him. He loves when you come in his mentions giving him rubbish. Nathan, thanks very much for that.
Cheers, lads.